Your Honor, the state calls Clint Benson.
All right. Mr. Benson?
Yeah.
I should have asked you if you did. Okay. I'll take a look. Mr. Benson, good afternoon. If you'd step in front of Brittany, we'll get you sworn in, sir. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the claims and penalties of perjury? What?
849. This is it.
We can try it around. Whatever's comfortable.
Sounds good. There we go.
Mr. Burmester, please proceed.
Thank you. Can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, Clinton Benson, Benson.
Sir, are you employed?
I am.
How are you employed?
I'm employed by Salt Lake County. I'm their real estate operations and asset manager. I manage their portfolio of 1,700 parcels and about a $5 billion portfolio.
Do you have any other licenses or, licenses? Let's go with that.
I do, yes. I'm a licensed realtor as well as licensed appraiser.
I see. You are married to Kouri Richins Benson.
Yes,
And did you know Eric
I did.
and Kouri?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with the address of 282 Willow Court Road?
I am.
How are you familiar with that?
That is one of our prior homes and Eric Richins' home.
Okay. So you lived in it beforehand?
Yes, we did.
And then what happened?
We sold the home to Eric Richins.
I see. After Eric died, where did Kouri and the kids live?
Kouri and the kids lived at Eric's home at the 282 Willow Court address.
Okay. And then after May 8th, who was responsible for securing that address?
That was me.
Okay. And what did you do to secure that home?
So on May 8th, I arranged for a locksmith to come and change all the locks. I also arranged for a private security company to come out and watch the home until we could get internet service provided, as well as install cameras around the property.
Okay. Once you had the internet, what happened then?
That was when we could install the cameras. The cameras require an internet access in order to record.
I see. And how long did that take before you got the cameras installed?
That was as quickly as possible. So we had private security there. We had private security there for 2 days until we could get that internet up and running.
Was there a person there 24/7?
There was. Yeah.
Okay. Did you take any other efforts to make sure no one entered that home?
I also taped doors throughout the property, so then I would know if a door was open and closed.
Okay. Now, did you have any real-time notice if there was some disturbance or something?
I did. So those cameras would send my cell phone a notice anytime something was tripped. So that included even just something as small as bug movement would trigger on the phone. So I'd be watching that.
So did you get a lot of notices?
It was a lot of notices. Yeah.
Okay. What did you do upon receiving a notice?
Receiving a notice, I would, of course, pull up the footage. I'd review it, make sure there was not a person that was trying to access the home. And at that point, then I would, if there was no one trying to access it, then of course I would close it down.
Okay. If there was somebody?
I would immediately call law enforcement.
Okay. Did you ever have to call law enforcement?
I did.
Did they show up?
They did within minutes.
Are you aware of any entry to the house? Let me back up. Is there a separate garage?
There is a separate detached garage.
Okay. Are you aware of any unauthorized entry of the home or the detached garage during the time you were in charge of security?
No, there was no entry.
Were there occasions when authorized personnel needed or wanted to make entry?
There was.
Who would that have been?
It would be the sheriff's personnel, and they would arrange through me if they needed to access the home.
Were there occasions when you yourself went in? There
was.
Tell me about that.
So I would go in the home if the kids, meaning Carter, Ashton, or Weston, if they had requested a specific item, So they still did have clothing in the home, as well as some sentimental items, trophies, things like that they wanted in the home.
And so how did that work? Just you did it and no one else, or?
It was primarily me. Occasionally, there was one instance where there was a live animal in the home. Carter did have a lizard, so I had to have help to carry that out of the home. So I had a family member help me do that.
Okay. But always you were there?
Yes.
Okay. And were there occasions when, I think there's been mention about Todd Gabler? Do you know him?
Yes.
Was there times when he asked to have entry?
Yes.
Were you with him?
I was.
Okay. How about defense attorneys or investigators? Did they have access?
Yes, we would. If they did request access, we would go with them to go through the home.
When you were going through the house, did you ever, well, not through the house, when you were inside the house on any occasion, did you ever see a missionary journal?
I do recall a missionary journal. Their master bedroom had a large master closet that was attached.
Who's they?
Kouri and Eric.
Okay.
Yep. So the master bedroom had a large closet that was attached, and
Okay.
I believe it was on the right side of that closet.
Okay. This journal was?
Yes,
Okay. Do you know whether Eric went on a mission?
he did go on a mission.
During your time in the home, either during this period or other occasions, did you see some written coupons?
I did. Yeah,
Where did you see those?
in the master bedroom.
When did you see that? Do you recall? Approximately.
I don't recall when I saw it.
After May 8th, 23?
Correct. Yep.
I'd like to turn your attention to October, November of 2020. Were you present with Katie when there was a phone call from Eric?
I was.
Okay. And could you hear the phone conversation?
I could. She had it on speakerphone.
You had met Eric prior to that. I mean, you had known him for some years
Yes.
before that.
Yes,
So could you tell what his demeanor was like?
I could. He was extremely distressed. I mean, he was really upset.
Angry upset or sad upset or a little bit of both? I mean,
It was a combination of both.
did he explain to you why he was upset? I'm asking you what he said. I'm asking, did he explain why he was upset?
Yes.
Okay. Having heard that, did you do something to assist with the situation?
I did.
What did you do?
I knew he was on his way over to our home after overhearing the conversation with Katie. In the amount of time it took him to get from where he was to our house, I was able to pull up the Summit County website, the recorder's website, where I could pull up the property address as well as the parcel ID and be able to view all of the recorded documents against the home.
And when you looked at that, did you find something that concerned you about the 282 Willow Court?
I did.
And what was that?
I found a $250,000 home equity line of credit that was taken out against Eric's house.
Did you pass that information on to Eric?
Yes.
After that conversation, that passing of that information, can you relate to us Eric's demeanor from that point?
Yeah, his demeanor was still very upset and very sad in general. So
Do you know what he did following that?
what he did following that, so we had a discussion about divorce attorneys while he was there
Okay.
as a result of finding out about that line of credit.
So how did you suggest a name?
I did.
Okay. Was that on request or were you encouraging?
It was on request, and so I mean, obviously Eric was extremely upset about what was happening, and it was just that conversation we were having where it was the next step would be to get a divorce attorney involved.
And so did you suggest a name?
I did.
Who was that?
Christina Miller.
Did you work out a system of communication between Christina Miller and Eric?
I did.
And what was that? Could you just describe it?
So I was an intermediary, so I would handle phone calls as well as emails back and forth. So they had requested certain amounts of information from Eric, and I would handle that passage of information.
Okay. Holding here, I believe we called it 8-49, Your Honor. And I overheard we have continuing permission.
Please.
I'm going to hand the witness State's Exhibit 8-49. I'd like to direct your attention to tab 13. Do you recognize what's there at tab 13?
I do.
Could you describe what it is?
It's customer cash payment authorization form. That's a Ford paperwork.
Okay. Do you know where it came from?
Yes, it came from the Heber Ford dealership.
Do you know, did you get it?
I did. I picked this up.
Okay. And once you picked that paperwork up, what did you do with it?
I gave it to Katie.
Okay. Does it have Eric's signature on it?
It does.
Okay. All right. I'd like you to direct your attention to tab 15. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that a photograph?
This is a photograph.
Yeah, of that journal you spoke about earlier?
Yep.
That's that same one that you'd seen in the house.
Correct. I saw the front cover of it. It's a much smaller book.
Okay. All right, let's turn to tab 16, please. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
It's coupons.
You had mentioned earlier that you had seen some coupons in the house.
Yes.
Are those the ones?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to direct your attention back to March 4th of 2022. My understanding is that you were at home in the middle of the night and the daughter was sick. Is that correct?
Yes. My youngest daughter had the stomach flu.
Okay. And you or Katie received a phone call?
Yes. Katie received a phone call.
What did you do after that?
We literally ran out of the house, left the doors open, jumped in the car, and drove over, honestly, as quick as we could. So
When you got to the house, what happened?
when we got to the house, Katie went in. I stayed outside for a little while just because I had my daughters with me. I have two young daughters, and then after that point, we ended up going into the home.
When you first entered the home, did you see anything unusual?
My number one priority was taking care of the kids, my two daughters as well as the boys. So I noticed some hand movements that Kouri was making, which seemed to me unusual, but
Had you ever seen those hand movements before?
no.
Could you demonstrate for the jury what you saw?
Simply like that. It didn't seem to me to be an unconscious tremor, but it just almost like just an intentional movement.
Once you were in the house, where did you go next?
I went up the steps up to the bonus room that Eric had.
Okay. Who was up there?
It was Carter, Ashton, Weston, and then my two daughters.
Okay. Did other adults come in and go out during the
They did.
morning?
They did.
At some point, were you aware that the medical personnel, the transportation personnel were moving Eric's body from the house to their truck?
We could hear that. Yep.
Okay. So what was happening at that moment?
So that basically those 4 hours, I was up with the kids. We were watching movies, playing games, doing things like that, trying to keep them occupied. Then we could hear the medical personnel leaving the home. I tried to stop the kids from going to the window, but given 5 kids up in that room, it was almost impossible. But
Your daughter still ill at this time?
she is. Yeah, she was vomiting on the floor. But yeah, so I stopped the kids from going to the window. They went to the window, and I think that was when they first saw their dad being wheeled out of the home and knew that he had passed.
Okay, you said they.
Yeah.
Can you just use names to make sure we understand who it is you're talking
I
about?
apologize. Yep.
No, you don't have to apologize.
So that was Carter and Ashton
Okay.
were the two main.
All right. And so what did you see?
So they saw Eric being wheeled out and put into the ambulance.
Did Carter say anything or do anything?
Carter's response was,
Why don't we focus on do first?
Yes. Did Carter do something or not?
his response was somewhat just level-headed. He knew at that point his dad was gone.
Okay. How about Ashton's response? What was that
His response was totally different. He just broke down and he was extremely upset.
like? Okay. Were you present for any requests by anyone, including Katie or yourself or anyone else, Kouri, to inform the boys about what had happened or the status of their father?
Sorry, can you say that question again?
Did you hear anyone ask Kouri to tell the boys that their father had passed?
I did.
Okay. That morning, after that, did you hear Kouri Richins talk about her plans with C&E?
I did.
Tell the court about that.
She had what sounded like what I would say would be a fully baked plan of what she was going to do with that company as of that morning. She was going to have, his name's TJ Pellegrino, I believe is his name, but she was going to have him take over running Eric's company alongside with Cody Wright.
I see. Can I have one moment, Your Honor?
Of course.
I have nothing further for you, Mr. Honor.
Ms. Lewis.
Good afternoon, Mr. Benson.
Good afternoon.
I believe we've met, but I'm Wendy Lewis, one of Kouri's attorneys. Let's go back to 2012 for a moment. You said that was when you sold the home, you and your wife sold the home to Eric, correct?
Correct.
And Eric and Kouri were living together at that time, correct?
I believe so. I can't say for sure, but I
Okay.
believe so.
Well, when Eric moved into the home, Kouri moved into the home with him, correct?
I believe so.
And they were married less than a year after moving into that home together.
Yes, that sounds correct.
All right. So that home was always lived in by both Eric and Kouri from the time Eric took possession of it, correct?
From the time of possession, did they live in that home the entire time together?
All right. Yes. Did they live in that home as their primary home? Not talking about when maybe some of them stayed somewhere else, but was that their primary home together from 2012 until the time of his death?
I am aware that Kouri had leased a home in Oakley where she was going to live separately for a period of time. So I can't answer that. I know for certain that they've both lived in that home the entire time.
Are you aware that Kouri never did live in another home during that period?
No.
All right. So you talked about then at that same, well, not that same time frame. You talked about then in 2020 that you helped Eric hire a divorce attorney.
Yes.
So 2 years before his death, you talked about it was that he'd found out some information he was upset about with Kouri, correct?
Correct.
And so you reached out to Christina Miller. You sent an email to her, correct?
Yes, I did.
Asking if she would represent your brother-in-law, correct?
I asked if she would be willing to represent him. So
All right. And you set up the appointment for him.
yes,
Did you attend the appointment with him?
I did not.
All right. But you described yourself as an intermediary, but wasn't it decided that all correspondence would be between you and the attorney, not between Eric and the attorney?
That's incorrect. Eric did attend in-person meetings with Christina that I was not there for.
Yeah, I understand. My question was not in-person meetings, all correspondence by email, for example.
Yes.
And all documentation that the lawyer requested from Eric was sent by you, correct?
As far as documentation that I knew about, Eric may have sent additional documentation that I didn't know about, but anything that I was aware of, I did send.
All right. So as far as you know, all documentation was sent by you.
As far as I know of documentation that I was informed about, I did send that correspondence.
Understood. And you were the one to gather up the documents from Eric, correct?
It would depend on if it was an in-person meeting or not. If Eric did something in person, I do not know what documentation he brought to Christina.
All right. Let's just take a step back. Did you send the documentation to the divorce lawyer that was requested?
Yes.
All right. And is it fair to say you were doing this because Eric didn't want Kouri to know he was considering a divorce at that time? Fair?
Eric was aware that Kouri was watching his emails and didn't want her to know.
So he didn't want her to know he was considering divorce.
I can't speak for him, so I don't know exactly what he was thinking at that moment.
All right, but he asked all the correspondence to be with you and not with him. Email and anything sent, either email or mail, was all done by you.
I can't say in general all correspondence.
I
So
understand.
I've got to clarify that. It's only correspondence that I am aware of. So whatever Eric did outside of my knowledge, I can't answer that.
I understand that. And you're not aware of any other correspondence that Eric did. You're just not aware.
No, the divorce attorney would be the best source of that information.
All right. And we'll get a chance to talk to her. So anyway, but ultimately, Eric decided that he was not going to divorce Kouri, correct?
Correct.
And nothing came of these meetings and correspondence, correct?
Well, because of the trust was created because of this correspondence.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah, so I recommended Christina Miller as the divorce attorney. She recommended Crystal Bowman to manage and write Eric's trust.
I understand that. But nothing happened as far as a divorce, correct?
They did not get divorced, no.
Right. Fair to say that at that time, you and your family, or at least you and Katie, were supportive of him divorcing Ms. Richins. Fair?
We were supportive of Eric no matter what the arrangement was. We were supportive while they were married. We were supportive of the divorce as well. So that was his choice.
All right. Now I want to jump to May of 2023. This is when you took control of the home on Willow Creek. Is that right, Willow Creek? Did I say that right?
Yep.
It
Yeah,
is
Willow Court.
All right. And you said you had the locks changed. Was that immediately?
As quick as the locksmith could get there.
All right. So within the week?
No, within a matter of hours, that locksmith was there.
And then you had cameras installed.
I installed the cameras.
You did that yourself.
I had the help of a family member.
All right. And you installed cameras outside the home?
Cameras outside as well as inside the home.
As well as inside. Is that the only time cameras were installed? Were they all installed at that time? Or were there cameras that then were installed later, additional cameras?
There's a substantial amount of cameras. The cameras, as cameras needed more batteries, things to swap out, things like that, I had to have a replacement. And so I did add an additional camera here and there in order to have a replacement on site. So yeah, I mean, I'd say that the original bulk were installed, and then later on I would add supplemental cameras for more redundancy, batteries, things like that.
All right. Both inside and outside.
Correct.
When was the last time the cameras were installed in the home?
Do you mean the bulk of the cameras, or if I brought in another camera?
When was the very last time you installed any cameras in the home? Or outside the home, to be clear?
That would have been years ago. I mean, it's been a long time.
All right. Now, you said that whenever someone needed to enter the home, you went with them.
Yes.
That's true. So every single time someone has entered that home, you have been present?
Yes.
Now, law enforcement has entered that home many times since May of 2023, correct?
Yes.
And each time there was more than one law enforcement officer that entered the home.
Yes, I believe so. You'd have to check their records.
All right. And they came to execute search warrants on the home.
Yes.
Do you recall how many times they searched the home between 2023 and today?
I don't have an exact number. They would have a better record.
If I told you 10?
Seems reasonable.
Does that seem reasonable? And the last time they searched that home was 2 weeks ago, I believe today, correct?
Yes.
So almost 4 years after Mr. Richins' death, law enforcement was still searching the home.
Yes.
Are you aware if they removed things from the home every time they came into the home?
I'm not aware. You'd have to check their records.
Yeah, I'm just asking if you were aware.
That they removed, typically as a result of a search warrant, I would think they would have removed items each time.
All right. And, you were there, correct?
Yes.
All right. So you saw them removing items from the home.
I would receive a search warrant and they would write the items that they were there to pick up. So I can't tell you for sure every time they left if they left with that item.
All right. Makes sense. Now, there have been other people in the home besides law enforcement.
Yes.
People have been into the home to collect belongings for the boys, correct?
Not people. It would primarily be me as well as occasionally it would primarily just be me. I believe in one instance I had a family member help me carry some clothing out of the home, but that's it.
There was a family friend who came in and early on and removed things from the home, true? Or a distant relative.
I wouldn't say removed things. So anything that was taken out of that home was all the children's belongings. So it would be their clothing, if they requested a trophy, if they wanted a fish out of the home that was a stuffed fish, for example. So those would be the items that would have sentimental value that the kids had wanted out of the home. And that would be me. So they would give me the items that they had wanted. I would go pick them up, and then I would take them.
All right. Okay, let's move to Mr. Gabler. Mr. Gabler, this is the private investigator that you and the family hired, correct?
Yes. Mr. Gabler was hired by Crystal Bowman for the estate.
For the estate. And, but he was paid out of the trust.
No.
Well, Ms. Bowman didn't pay him, correct?
Yeah, he was initially paid by myself.
So you personally paid him at first?
Yes.
And eventually he was paid out of the trust, correct?
Correct.
He was paid at least $100,000 out of the trust, correct?
Correct. You'll have the records. So.
All right. The trust that the three boys are the beneficiary of, correct?
The three boys are the beneficiary, yes.
Okay. But that money was used to pay for an investigator. Fair?
Fair. In regard to, in regard to ongoing litigation, that would be it. So
understood. Do you recall when Mr. Gabler was hired? How shortly after Eric Richins' death?
I believe it was maybe a little over a month after.
Around a month. And part of what he did as your private investigator was to look into Kouri Richins' background. True?
True.
And he looked into everything about her business, correct?
Todd did not directly look into her business, but he in general looked into her background.
Well, he interviewed people about her business, true?
I believe so. I'm not aware. He did his own reporting.
Well, you were very involved in what Mr. Gabler was investigating, fair to say?
Yes.
And you knew that he was investigating Kouri in order to try and come up with something that would result in criminal charges, fair?
No, that's not fair.
That's not fair.
No.
Well, isn't it?
Todd investigated for the truth. He made it clear that no matter what, we had to be comfortable with the truth, no matter what that answer is.
And the truth that you were looking for was information to charge Kouri Richins.
I'll let him answer that. I'll let him answer that, and we need to move on. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, sorry, can you ask the question?
The truth you were looking for was evidence to charge Kouri Richins.
That's false.
All right. However, Mr. Gabler was supplying evidence to Summit County investigators at least as early as November of 2022, correct?
I don't know the exact date.
Well, when he would send information to investigators, would he copy you on those emails?
I don't recall if I received all correspondence with that. I couldn't tell you exactly.
Did you receive correspondence?
I did.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Of course.
defense counsel showed me the document he's going to present.
Any objection?
No,
Okay.
If you could just take a look at this, but don't
Yeah.
read it out loud, just
Okay.
take a look at it.
Okay.
Do you see the date on that, Mr. Benson?
I do.
So let me ask again. As early as November of 2022, Mr. Gabler was sending information to Summit County Sheriff's Officer, to the investigators, detectives in this case, about Kouri's possible involvement in her husband's death. True?
Correct.
And you were copied on that.
Yes.
All right.
Would now be an appropriate time to take a short restroom break, Ms. Lewis.
That would be fine.
Okay,
Yes.
folks, let's stretch our legs. Please rise for the jury. All right, have a seat. Thank you. So would you do me a favor?
Yes.
Would you stretch your legs, use the restroom if you want, but don't talk to anybody.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Thank you.
We'll call you back in when it's your time.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you. Leave all that there. Yep. All right, we're still on the record. Ms. Lewis, to head off potential series of objections from the state, would you give me a preview of the categories of information that are left in your outline for Mr. Benson?
I think it's all based on what was on direct. Is Mr. Gabler being in and out of the home, other things about people being in and out of the home, and then the night day of March 4th, following up on some of the questions they asked.
What the witness perceived didn't do during that time frame?
What he perceived, yes, that
Okay.
sort of thing.
All right. Any concerns, Mr. Burmester?
no, not on those.
Okay. Folks, let's take a 10-minute break, but I'm trying to hold myself accountable. If you would help me do the same. Back on the record at 3:55. Thank you. Court's in recess. We're back on the record. Mr. Burmester, may we invite Mr. Benson back in?
Yes.
No problem. Tracy, do we need a break? No problem. Yeah, take a moment. Yep. If you want to have a seat, that's fine. Thank you, sir. Thanks for asking. 1 second, counsel. Ms. Lewis, please proceed.
We were talking about Mr. Gabler. As part of Mr. Gabler's investigation, he was allowed into the Willow Court home a number of times, correct?
Correct.
And he would go into the home and look through things all through the house, correct?
Correct.
Were you with him? I think you said you were, but you were with him every single time he went into the home.
Yes.
And did you see him move things around the home when he would go in?
Yes.
All right. And this was, well, let me rephrase that. Do you know when the first time was that he went in the home?
I don't know an exact date. You would probably know that date.
He would know what you said?
Or he would most likely.
I don't know it. So that's what I was asking.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But we talked about there were approximately 10 searches between May of 2023. Well, actually, I think April of 2023 and 2 weeks ago. He was in the home in between those searches, right?
Correct.
And in between those searches, he would find things and put them in different places, correct?
Todd documents everything that he does. He records it. I believe he records sound, does everything when he does his own investigation. So
He records. I'm sorry.
I believe he would record it if he was in the home. So sometime I believe it would be at least an audio. So yeah, I mean
He would audio record what he was doing while he was in the home.
yes, Todd's very specific about recording what he does.
Would he ever video record what he was doing?
I know that I believe he would audio record. I don't know specifically about a video, but you would have to consult Todd.
There were blink cameras in the home, though, or
Yes.
cameras
Yes.
recording what he was doing, right?
Yes.
Did you ever turn those cameras, those videos, or those recordings over to the prosecution?
Those, they overwrite every 60 days. I believe that you've subpoenaed to get the video recordings, which we've given.
You have given those
Yes.
to
To-
who did you give those to?
You. If we were subpoenaed, we provided the video recordings.
Right. We'll get back to that in just a minute. All right. So, did he ever take things out of the home with him, Mr. Gabler?
I don't have a specific record of what he would have taken out of the home. He would have a record of that.
Okay, well, I don't need a record right now. I just a yes or no. Do you know if he took things out of the home with him?
Thinking that he may have taken some documents, but I couldn't tell you exactly. He would have a better record.
If he took anything out of the home, would he provided that to the detectives or to the prosecution in this case?
Yes.
When you were in the home with Mr. Gabler, just the two of you, did you stay right with him throughout the house?
For the most part, yes.
All right. Was he ever allowed to just wander around while you sat down in the family room or something?
Typically, I was with him.
Okay. Typically. Not always.
I can't guarantee that he wasn't ahead of me walking into a room when I was in the living room, so I would think typically I would have been right there with him.
So fair to say that during all these times that Mr. Gabler was searching the home, moving things, he was looking for things to help the prosecution. Fair?
No, that's not fair.
What was he looking for?
Todd was doing his own analysis.
Which he then provided all to the prosecution, correct?
I believe he did provide it. You'd have to ask him.
All right. Now, there were times that you were alone in the home, true?
True.
And what were you doing in the home when you were there by yourself?
When I was in the home by myself, it would be property management type things. So it would be flushing toilets, making sure that water would still run, making sure water wasn't leaking, making sure water heaters were turning over so that way they didn't go moldy, things like that. So it was primarily home maintenance type things. Again, if I was requested to pick up an item by the children, then I would go and pick up those items. But that would be the only reason I was in the home.
Okay. So you were in and out of the main bedroom, Eric and Kouri Richins' bedroom?
Yes, there's a bathroom in there. So.
And you were in and out of the bathroom?
Yes.
All right. I have a few more questions, but can I just have one moment, Your Honor? Thank you, sorry. So in the last 60 days, who has been in and out of the home?
Last 60 days would be myself. It would be your private detective, or the defense's private detective. It would be the sheriff's officers with the warrant, and that's it.
You're providing all of those videos, correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's go back to the night of March 4th, 2022 for a moment. You said that you got to the house that night, middle of the night, correct?
Sorry, say the question again.
March 4th, 2022.
Okay. Yep.
You came to the home as quickly as you could, so about what time was that?
It's between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, around there.
Okay. And you came in carrying your two girls, correct?
Yes.
And you said that you saw something unusual.
Yes.
And you said that what was unusual was that Kouri was shaking her hands.
Mm-hmm.
And you found that someone whose husband had just dropped dead in front of her shaking the hands was an unusual reaction, in your opinion?
I don't know how personal I can get. So when a person so I've noticed quite honestly, when your hand's trimmer.
I do remember. That's observant.
Okay. It's subconscious, isn't it? So that happens. It's subconscious. And you can see it. You obviously notice it. So there's an obvious difference, in my opinion. I'm not a medical professional, but there's a difference between a subconscious tremor and someone who's doing this.
All right. Let me ask you this. Had you ever seen Kouri prior to that day, immediately after losing one of the closest people in her life?
No.
So you'd never seen her grieving prior to this?
No.
So you don't know what was typical or not typical for Kouri Richins, right?
No, that's correct.
Okay. All right, you said you took the boys upstairs into the playroom. I guess it's called the playroom, that sort of loft area.
Sure. Yes, correct.
All right. And how's that room set up? How many windows are in that room?
One.
And aren't there toy shelves in front of that window?
There are toy shelves in front of that window, yes.
Okay. And the boys were 9 and 7, the two older boys?
Yes.
All right. So did they crawl up on the shelves to look out the window?
At the time, I don't believe. So that home's been reorganized. So at the time, there was different furniture up there. So there were couches up there. Currently, there's not couches up there. So I think the toy shelves had been rearranged. So before I believe they could actually access that window.
All right. You're not sure, though.
I'm positive that furniture's been rearranged in that home,
But you're not sure what was in front of the window at that time.
I can't remember exactly what toy shelves were in front of that window at that time.
Okay. And so Eric was brought out on a stretcher. He was covered, correct?
Yes.
All right. So what was visible was what we see on TV, a body covered in a sheet.
Correct.
All right. And then you said that people asked Kouri told Kouri, asked Kouri, I'm not sure, that she needed to tell the boys that their father had passed, correct? Actually, I don't think that's what you said. I'm really sorry. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. I think what you said is you never heard Kouri ask anyone to tell the boys that their father had passed. I believe that's what you actually said.
Say that again.
You testified on direct that at no time did you hear Kouri tell any of the family, you need to tell the boys what's just happened to their father. Or to tell the boys their father has passed, correct?
No, that's incorrect. So,
all right. I'm sorry, then go ahead. What was it you said?
Yeah, so I had heard people tell Kouri that we need to tell the boys.
Okay. 2 questions. First, were you aware that the boys had already told their grandmother that they knew that their father had passed? Earlier, before, maybe even before you got there. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that, and that sounds incorrect.
All right. And ultimately, it was Kouri herself who spoke to the boys and told them what had happened, correct?
Yes.
Were you there when that happened?
I was in the home, but I wasn't in the room.
You weren't in the room sitting with the boys when she told them that their father had died?
No, I believe I was in the room. So if we're talking about, so there's somewhat, I think, some different instances where a boy maybe went back into a room and she talked to one of them there. There was also a time when we were all sitting in the living room, okay, and they were talking about it there.
All right, I don't want you to speculate. Just if you know or you don't know. Were you there when she sat the 3 boys down and told them what happened?
Yes, I was sitting on the couch with my 2 daughters. Yes.
Okay. Could you hear the conversation?
Yes, I think she was a few seats down.
All right, and she did explain to the boys?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me 1 moment. I have nothing further at this time.
Mr. Burmester.
Yes, just regardless of how the furniture is today, do you have a distinct recollection of seeing the body being wheeled out that window?
I do.
Was there any occasion when you were with Mr. Gabler after charges had been filed? Well, first of all, I'll ask that.
After
Charges filed,
yes.
Ever go in with Mr. Gabler?
Yes.
In those instances, did you ever see Mr. Gabler identify something and leave it and tell the police later?
Absolutely. Yeah. Todd would not, if anything was of interest, he would immediately call the sheriff's office, and it would be documented.
Did you ever see Mr. Gabler bring items in and leave them at the house?
No.
So I think you testified that Eric bought the home in 2012?
Yes.
From you?
Correct. Me and my wife.
And the next summer, 2013, is when Eric married Kouri, correct?
Yes.
In the backyard of that house?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
May this witness step down, Ms. Lewis?
Can I ask just one more?
Of course.
My P2. I say that, and
I understand.
She just said that anytime Mr. Gabler would find something of interest, he would call the Summit County Sheriff's Office?
Correct. For a proper chain of custody.
So as he was looking for evidence against Kouri, he would call them and tell them to get a search warrant?
I believe so, yes.
Nothing further.
Mr. Burmester, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
You can step down, sir. Thank you. Be that. The state's next witness.
Deputy Wynn, please.
Okay.